I wonder if you already know that many people go through a period of kind of grieving their youth or having a sense of regret. This tends to typically happen between the ages of 35 and 50, with women reporting it a little bit earlier than men. And it can even occur, though, into the 60s, and it can happen more than once, too. And yet, there are many ways to overcome or even avoid this so called midlife crisis. So, that's what we're here to talk about today on this week's Mindful Monday. If it's your first time joining us, feel free to type in comments where you're coming from, if you have any questions or comments, or if you have a topic that you'd like to hear more about in the future. We love to hear suggestions. If it is your first time joining us and you type the word mindful after the broadcast, of course, I'll go back and put in a link that if you follow, you'll get some free gifts, one of which being a PDF every week of the bullet points of what we cover, as well as a hypnotic recording that I created on releasing limiting beliefs. All right. So, what are the signs of a midlife crisis? So, one of them is a belief that your life kind of lacks meaning. You could be asking, is this all there is, or what's the point? It's a sense of general dissatisfaction. Another one is regret for all the goals that you've never accomplished. So, you might begin to recognize that it might be too late to accomplish some of those goals that you haven't yet achieved. So, you might not, at the age of 50, be a prima ballerina or a pro football player, kind of things, right? And then number three is resentment over career or financial success. So you may have wanted a more successful or more lucrative career than you've had up to this point. And four is resentment towards your spouse or your partner. You might at times wish you'd chosen a different partner or had never gotten married in the first place. Another one, number five, is a strong yearning to feel younger. And perhaps you suddenly wish you looked or you felt younger. Okay, and it's really strong yearning. And we all have times when we wish that. Okay. Number six is a strong urge to make drastic physical or social changes. So this might look like a sudden urge to get in great shape or have plastic surgery, or maybe you suddenly feel like connecting with friends from college and hitting the clubs or the bars and dancing all night like you did 30 years ago, kind of thing. And lastly is a strong urge to just start all over. And this might be a feeling of wishing you could blow your life up and start over, kind of thing. So just take a moment and know that this is an exciting time in your life. It doesn't feel so exciting right now if you're going through it, understanding. But here are some ways to make the most of this grand opportunity. So, one is your purpose. So, whether it be you have an empty nest with kids going off to school, or you feel sick of your career, or your social circle may have dwindled, or you're experiencing the passing of a friend or family member, and it kind of has you feeling like you lack your purpose, then it's time to find a new life purpose. We can have more than one. We can start over with that in a sense, right? So, studies have shown that those with a strong sense of purpose actually live longer and they have lower risk of stroke, heart attack, and dementia. So, all good things there. You might also ask yourself, what do I think is the overall meaning of life? And what do I want the meaning of my life to be? So, these are ways to kind of, search out what that purpose might be, the new purpose, if you will. Or you could ask, what have I achieved so far? Or what else do I want to achieve? And who do I want to become? How do I define myself? And is this the best way to view myself? So you can rediscover your life's purpose by making a long list of your values. What qualities do you admire that is in yourself or in others? That's your values, right? And then prioritizing it. So this is a long list. After you prioritize it, then circle the ones that are most important to you. So you want to circle the top 10 and then maybe cut it down to five, the top five. So you're really in touch with your core values. You can also make a list of your strengths and your skills, taking note of what you are good at and what you can do better than most people. So you want to keep these lists handy for the future too. And then consider a challenge in the world that you'd like to address. What do you consider to be a meaningful challenge in the world? Maybe it's poverty, maybe it's homelessness, it could be human trafficking, elderly care, animal rights, environmental issues, illiteracy, whatever's right for you, kind of thing. And ask yourself what you enjoy doing that is useful to others. Ask yourself what your gut is telling you. And then set a deadline for deciding on what your new purpose is in life, say in the next 2 weeks, because we want to have that SMART goal. So that's like that set time period, right? And then write out your goal statement, something like on or before the date 2 weeks from now, I will have decided on my life's purpose. I will be confident in my decision and excited by the prospect of focusing my life on this purpose. And then go ahead and read your goal statement each day for the 2 weeks and then choose whatever seems best for you. And I highly advise reading it out loud because it kind of tends to sink in better if you have the opportunity. Okay, so then we go to your values, strengths, and skills list will now come in handy in making your overall plan. So gather up those lists that you made before. And remember that your purpose doesn't have to be a new career. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a volunteer position outside of the career, or it could be something completely different, right? So make a long term plan regarding fulfilling your life purpose, and then go back from the long term plan and make a short term plan. The best way out of a midlife crisis is to get busy doing something meaningful. And this can also help you to avoid a midlife crisis too if you start taking proactive steps, right? And so the second thing we want to talk about with this is passions. So think about, what is your passion? Is it cats, fine wine, painting, dancing? Maybe you haven't had the chance to follow or pursue your passions. So know that that's about to change. If you have the time to have midlife crisis, you have the time to get in touch with your purpose and your passions, right? And so if you're experiencing symptoms of this midlife crisis, this is a wonderful time to spend really getting in touch with the things that you do truly enjoy. Now, while your purpose is all about something that's meaningful, if you will, your passions are all about your personal interests. So they're kind of selfish, if you will. So they don't need to serve a greater good or take other people into consideration at all. So passions can grow, they can wane, and they can change over time as well. They're essentially hobbies, if you will. So a complete life is really balanced with purpose and with passion. So if you have trouble connecting to your passions, you might consider what your interests were when you were younger, like a child or a teenager, right? And then list the topics that interest you. What would you like to try? What do people you know do that sounds interesting to you or fascinating? And what makes you lose track of time, that flow state, right? That means you're enjoying yourself for the most part. Do you prefer doing activities alone or with others? And consider in any financial costs as far as your hobbies, right? And then consider the time that any hobby or personal passion would take into account too. And then do some exploring. You could check out meetup groups for ideas if that's helpful to you. And finally, number three, the third main point is spirituality. So often our spiritual development takes kind of a backseat to our career, to our family, right? To other obligations. Yet a spiritual practice can provide clarity, it can ground you, it can make your life feel more steady and reliable while elevating your mood too. It also decreases stress. It can allow you to be more aware of things and able to move through your own emotions too. And some spiritual practices can also offer a community, if that's something you're interested in, of like minded people as well. So it can be a way of learning and exploring more about yourself too. So if you aren't sure what might work for you, set aside some time each day to do some reading, some research on spiritual practices or books and stuff like that. And you might find mindfulness or a yoga practice or one of many forms of meditation, or it could be something like a choir group for you that lifts you up. Maybe it's more about, if you're one of those stay-at-home kind of people, maybe it's more about reading spiritual books and just blocking out some time to do that, right? And so then, besides the above, you want to make sure to eat healthily, of course, get adequate sleep, move your body, and spend time with others. And I really suggest also reading, not just necessarily on spiritual, but just read a little bit on a daily basis to be happier and to have this more fulfilling life. All right. So that's all for today's Mindful Monday. I hope it was useful to you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Take